when I was here a few months ago, when the French film crew was here. We had a wonderful visit. And I have always maintained, and you and I talked about this, when we talked about the saucer itself, the disc, the flying disc itself, and the body. And we talked about that. At that time, you told me that you had not observed the body up close, that you felt you were about 20 feet away from it, that the body was partially covered with a tarp, and it was next to the disc, the saucer itself. I have two questions. One, was the disc in so many different pieces, or was it pretty much all together but maybe broken in pieces? That's my first question. Could you, when you observed the disc, what did it look like?
That's a rough one. I haven't even thought about it, lo these many years. And I honestly can't even visualize it, whether it's still in its shape, but had a lot of dings in it. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I do not remember.
Can you kind of remember about how big it was? How much space it took up in the hangar?
I would venture a guess that probably a diameter of somewhere around 25 feet.
Okay.
And this is going back so many years, and my mind has gotten weaker and weaker and weaker over these many years.
You told me that that even though you didn't go right up to the body, I'm assuming from what you told me, since you said that you weren't close enough to smell the body, but that you were probably, to the best of your recollection, you were within approximately 20 feet of the body, which is really not that great of a distance. And that, basically, there's two parts to this question. One, there was only one body, and what did that body look like?
To the best of my remembrance, there was one body. Boy, you got me going back so many years that to the best of my resemblance, it was a relatively small body, comparable to, maybe a 11-year-old, 10 or 11-year-old child. It was pretty well beat up. I cannot come and give you, to be honest, anything other than that. I remember something about the arms, and I'm trying to visualize that, and all of a sudden it starts going through my little head that they show some of those long arm in the cartoons. This is a long period of time has gone by.
Any color?
I honestly don't know. As I said, I just mentioned, it's been so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And to try and remember details, I wish that I had been smarter in my youth and sat down with a tape recorder and talked about the whole thing, and then 20 or 30 years later sell a copy of it to you. Or somebody else.
I still get tongue-tied and forget things. Questions that I've answered 15, 20 times. Same question, but put just a little bit differently.
Uh-huh.
You have to shake your head and back off and regroup.
Yeah. Well, but I don't need to give you my standard lecture about I want you to be relaxed. It's just you and me talking. Just sort of ignore Tom and his camera. Just pretend they're not here. I just want you to be as comfortable as possible.
I do have a bad habit, and you may think I'm looking over the camera. I'll do that occasionally. When I'm trying to think, I may lose eye contact with you, and that was just strictly, I want to break. I mean, just, that's a good excuse. And look away and I can stop for a tenth of a second.
Okay. Tom, we rolling?
Yes, we are.
All right. Mr. Hawk, can you tell me about the day that Colonel Blanchard gave you a call and told you to put out a news release? What was happening that day, as you recall, when that phone conversation took place?
Basically, up until the time I got the phone call from him, I sure can't tell you what was happening. It was probably a very routine day. I was doing either some public relations work, base housing, or something else. I can't remember what it was. It was just the normal work day. Got the telephone call from Colonel Blanchard, and in essence, he told me that he had in his possession a flying saucer, parts thereof. Gave me a little bit of idea where it came from, and ranch northwest of Roswell. Then stated that Major Marcel, Jesse Marcel, who was our base intelligence officer, was going to fly it to Fort Worth to turn it over to General Roger Ramey, who was commanding general of the 8th Air Force at that time in Fort Worth.
And what did Colonel Blanchard want you to do?
He told me to prepare a release with basically the information that he gave me over the phone. When it was done, to take it into community and hand deliver it to the 4 news media we had in Roswell at that time, which is what I did.
As best you recall, would that have happened, the initial phone conversation during the morning or in the afternoon?
To the best of my remembrance, it would have been in the morning, and I would have to guess somewhere, I would guess around 9 o'clock. The only reason I come up with that figure is that had to be done and gotten into town so that it would have gone to the record in time for them to set it and to have gone ahead and run it in that day's evening paper.
And would you know what day this happened?
I would say the 8th of July, 1947.
And that was the date of the Roswell Daily Record article. Okay. What, once you wrote up the news release, then what happened after that?
As I said, I had to take it into town. He told me to take it in so that if there was any validity to the fact that this was a flying saucer, and information got out to other news media other than our own, he felt that he wanted our people there in Roswell to have had first crack at it. Didn't want them to feel that he had given the information out to someone who got it to the press services outside of Roswell. So I took it into town and delivered it to news media in town, 2 radio stations and 2 newspapers.
Do you happen to recall what your itinerary was? Who you went to first, for example?
I'm almost certain I went to the radio station KGFL first. Secondly, to KSWS. They were a half a block north. And then I took it to the Daily Record, which was a block further north. And then on my way back out to the base, I dropped it off at the Morning Dispatch, which was about 3 blocks from the Daily Record.
What's your recollection about the reception initially when you handed out this news release to these various local outlets? Did anybody read this material and respond immediately?
I don't believe they did. I believe, again, you're going back some many, many years. I believe the first place I went was to KGFL, and I believe I just simply left it on the desk of the receptionist. As best I recall, she was not there, and Frank Joyce, to the best of my memory, was in the studio, and he could see the reception area and also see out on the street. And I think I probably pointed at it to indicate that it was something for them. I don't remember what had happened at KSWS. The record, I gave it to the editor because he sat close to the front door. Probably said, "Hi, Don, how are you, Dad? Might like to have this," or, very, nothing fantastic, just the normal routine, what I did when I brought him a news release. And then I went down to the dispatch. Again, I believe there I took it into either the editor's office or the publisher's office. I knew both of them real well, and occasionally I'd stick my head in and shoot the breeze with the publisher. The actual delivering of it to who I gave it, I may have seen a half dozen people in the different news media offices, and who I finally said, "Here it is." It's kind of hard to differentiate from one to the other.
Nothing real remarkable.
Nothing
about that.
Nobody said, "Oh, wow." I just looked at it, and put it down.
Well, most journalists treat news releases, right?
That's right. And this was not something that was unusual, because you walk into someone's office and say, "Here's a news release," which I had done many, many times, and nothing was that hot that they had to grab it and run back and stop presses and that type of thing. So it was just a matter of they took it and probably glanced at it, and we had a few words, and I went my merry way.
And what happened next after you had completed your appointed rounds?
I returned to the base, and when I got into my office, the phone was ringing. I picked it up, and the first call was from London, England. I answered the phone. That's how I found out it was from London, England, some newsman over there. And his question was, how did Major Marcel know how to fly this object? I had, in the release, had stated that Major Marcel had flown the object to Fort Worth, meaning that he had put it on an aeroplane and got in and flew the aeroplane. It was a choice of words the way I put it. There were a tremendous number of calls to the same effect. If this was an unidentified flying object, how would we have someone within our Air Force that knew how to just get in there and flip switches and run controls? Some of them, some of them were rather terse. Is this another one of those fly-by-night stories? Can you verify it? And the commanding officer is the one that stated that this is what we had.
That was verification enough for you, wasn't it?
For me, that was more than enough verification. When he said something, that was the law.
Yeah.
That went on continually. We had continual phone calls by people that were working for me in the office. Left somewhere around 5 o'clock. We wouldn't stay till 6 o'clock or so. I left there, I would get 7:30 to 8 o'clock. By that time, it tapered off completely, and I spent the last half hour or so just looking over what had happened during the course of the day. And beyond the Roswell incident, the base didn't stop operating because we found that so-called flying saucer.
What happened the next day, as you recall?
The only thing that happened of any import, as far as I was concerned, I believe I read it in the morning newspaper, or heard it on the news, that General Ramey said that we didn't have a flying saucer, that was a weather balloon. with which I just breathed this tremendous sigh of relief, and I think I turned to one of the people in the office and said, well, they sure made fools of us again. Then again, we fit into the category of hundreds of others that had said they saw flying objects. So it was not uncommon for people to think they had a flying object, and then lo and behold, it shot down. Beyond that, that was the end of it.
Did you see any of this wreckage or any of the material?
None whatsoever.
Do you believe that Colonel Blanchard had seen it?
Yes, I do.
And why do you feel that way?
I don't think he would have been so, I don't want to say gung-ho, but I don't think he would have been so confident in his comment of, we have a flying saucer in our possession, or parts of a flying saucer. I don't, over this many years, I don't remember the exact verbiage, but he wasn't overly excited. He wasn't flippant about it. It was just a normal, routine type of conversation that we'd have when he'd call me and say he wants this done.
But he sounded pretty positive about
He sounded positive, yes.
what he had. Would you have any reason to believe that Colonel Blanchard would have mistaken this material for being any form of weather balloon or observation device?
I don't think there's one chance in a billion that he would not have recognized a weather balloon. He was a West Point graduate, class of 37, as best I recall. Had gone up through, from second lieutenant up to colonel, not too many years. Very intelligent individual, not the type to just jump off on tangents. I think he knew a weather balloon if he had seen it, and that would have been the end of that. He wouldn't have gone anywhere with it. He would have told Major Marcel, this is a weather balloon. Then again, Major Marcel would have known that it wasn't a weather balloon.
That was my next question. Is it possible that Major Marcel would have been misled? Or
No.
Is it possible that Colonel Blanchard might have been misinformed by somebody who told him about what this wreckage was without having seen it for himself?
I would doubt that very much. I don't think he would have taken the actions he did by going down to operations with it. If he was there in the operations building, he certainly saw it. I'm sure that Major Marcel had talked to him and had given him some pretty sage advice as far as he was concerned on the metallurgy of it. I don't know how much Jess Marcel knew about it, but he, again, was a very intelligent individual and not the type that would just jump at anything and try to carry it to an end. And between the two of them, I'm certain that one or the other would have called the other one's hand if it was a weather balloon.
So what did you think when General Ramey said it was a weather balloon? Do you believe that?
We're in 1947. When the general said it was a weather balloon, it was a weather balloon. And it was a load off of our mind, as far as I was concerned. And when I said our mind, my office, the public relations office.
Because you no longer be the focus of
We
world
were
attention.
out of it completely.
You're just as happy that was the case.
Very much so. That was, as far as I was concerned, that was the end of the story. Surprisingly, I used to see General, at that time, he had become General Blanchard. When he'd come into town, he'd call me and I'd go out and have breakfast with him or lunch. Never a word was mentioned at any time during any of our conversations.
Was that deliberate on your part?
No, I had very frankly completely forgotten about it. And whether he had forgotten, I would doubt it very much, but he just never brought it up.
Did anything happen? Did the colonel say anything about this incident shortly after General Ramey's statement? Perhaps in a staff meeting?
In the next staff meeting, which was about a week later, I think we held them at that time every Monday, he made some comments about our agenda and what we were going to talk about. And I believe after those comments, he made some statement. He said, to the effect, we sure messed up on that one last week. Matter of fact, he said, that outfit that was sending those weather balloons up were here on our station. They were from White Sands, and they were checking the upper atmosphere winds from east to west.
So he sort of helped buttress the weather balloon theory.
With that comment, we all, see, we knew it all along. We were all real smart all of a sudden. We knew that it wasn't a flying saucer.
Did you ever have a chance to talk with Jesse Marcel?
Not until about 1980. Next time I talked to Jesse, he came to Roswell with Johnny Mann from a TV station in New Orleans. He was taking Mann out to the site to show him where it had happened. He interviewed myself and had brought Jesse with him. And I spent an hour and a half or 2 hours with Jess the night that he was there and talked about it. That time said that was no weather balloon. What I brought in the general's office is not what was there when I came back in the news media were there. That kind of convinced me, but he was a neighbor of mine, a block down the street in Roswell. I had highest regard for the man. He was a very fine individual, very impressed with his son, now Dr. Marcel. He was quite a sharp little 11-year-old. I believe he was 11 or 12, whatever it was. He was as sharp as a cracker, and I think he still is.
What about another officer there on the base who worked with Major Marcel, Sheridan Cabot? Does that name ring a bell with you?
The name, yes, I'd heard it. He was OSI or CIA or something. I had no association with him whatsoever at any time. You asked this question in 1947 and he walked by, I could have said that's him over there. That'd been about the extent of it. Had nothing to do with him in any way, manner, shape, or form.
There's been some talk about circumstances under which you left the Air Force. Suggestion was that somehow you were pressured into leaving because of your involvement in this story and that sort of thing. Can you set it straight?
Do you want a long story or a very short story?
Yeah, let's try the short version, then I can ask questions.
At the time of the incident, we had a 2-month-old daughter. We had built a house a couple months before. I was gone a lot of the time. I had about 4 different jobs. We were starting to wonder, well, I think my daughter at her age of 2.5 or 3 months wondered what this was that came in the house every once in a while. My wife and I talked about it. Quite a decision for us to have made. Try to decide to stay in the service or get out. Well, we kicked this thing back and forth, and finally in February 1948 we decided that we'd stay in Roswell. I felt I knew enough people in business there that I could, if nothing else, I could get a job in Roswell. I submitted my letter of resignation. I was a regular Air Force officer. Put it on Colonel Blanchard's desk April the 1st of 1948. On August the 18th of 1948, they got a Twix at the base. Started out with First Lieutenant Walter G. Haught, serial number 041123, and goes on and on and on and on and on. And it states that relieved of all duties and assignments and all that, and it ends up, Mr. Walter G. Haught's permanent address is 1405 West 7th Street, Roswell, New Mexico. I thought it was rather humorous. I start out as Lieutenant Haught up here, and it Twix that long. At the bottom, I was Mr. Haught.
Right.
It had nothing to do whatsoever with the incident or anything else that had happened on the base. It was just a personal matter that my wife and I both felt we'd like to raise our daughter in Roswell. A small enough community, good school system, everything else. Maybe we shouldn't have been thinking that far ahead at that point in our life, but it was one of the things that we were taking into account. I was also probably going to be transferred to Fort Worth within a matter of 4 to 6 months. We didn't want to go to Fort Worth. We wanted to stay in a smaller community. Blanchard had told me that if I did go to Fort Worth, that I would become Public Relations Officer, 8th Air Force. He transferred over there subsequently and became Operations Officer, 8th Air Force. And from then on, he started going up the ladder rather rapidly.
He was rather well connected, wasn't he?
Yes. His mentor was General Curtis. I have to stop on that. I always want to say Curtis Easy LeMay. That was Curtis E. LeMay. General LeMay.
So as far as you're concerned, you could have stayed with the military and enjoyed a rather bright future.
Yes.
No talk about your being shipped out after the...
None whatsoever. Things just went on the way they had been going on. Well, not the day I arrived on the station, but after we came back from Bikini, where I become Public Relations Officer for the 509th Air Attack Unit. And when I came back to Roswell, Blanchard made me the Group Public Relations Officer and also Base Public Relations Officer.
Do you have any regrets having been involved in this incident?
None whatsoever. I found it fascinating. I meet so many different people. 99% are real nice, but once in a while that 1% always pops up and kind of squares you away and go on your merry way. It's been fun.
Mm-hmm. In your heart of hearts, what do you think it was that was on that ranch, Roswell, 43 years ago?
Some type of craft from outer space. From where, I do not know. I've talked to enough people involved in it. Such as Jesse Marcel Sr. and Jr., other people that have had a little touch of it, Bob Shirkey, who still lives in Roswell. Everything I've heard from the investigators, always, every time they come up with something new, I'm kind of, wow, that really is a surprise. That puts another crown or star in the crown or whatever you want to say about it. My feeling is that there's been so much that has been brought forward by legitimate people that there had to be something to it, and apparently that is what it was. It was something that crash landed out there in the desert. And I'm a firm believer.
Can I get you to express your desire about what our government should do about this at this point in history?
Well, very frankly, I think that the government ought to take all files that they have on this subject and turn them over to a committee of legitimate ufologists, if you permit the use of that word, whether they be the ones that I'm familiar with, or a panel of scientists who are not negative, but will look at all the information with an open mind and come up with a conclusion. I think that, this is censorship, pure and simple. I don't like it. We want the right for people to walk the streets with placards and protest. I wonder what would happen if a bunch of people started walking around Pentagon and the archives carrying signs, "We want the files." I don't think we'd get very far.
That's right. Is there anything that I've missed in all of this that you feel is important to add to this record that we're trying to put together? Any experiences that you've had, or any thoughts or concerns?
Well, all my experiences with this have been extremely pleasant. I've met some of the nicest people. I've only had one experience. It was a telephone call from a fellow called, and when I was out at the time. When I came home, my wife said, "The shadow called you." And I said, "The what?" She said, "You know, the shadow, the squeaking door." This fellow called me. He was a friend from my past, and he spoke this very low voice and very slowly, telling me that I was going to be in trouble. I should forget this whole thing. He told me all about how the materials were found and they were put on freight cars and shipped from one place to the next. And my recollection of that is real vivid, primarily because it was trying to talk to this fellow and keep a straight face. My wife kept walking near me. Creak. I thought that was one funny one. He told her when she first talked to him that morning, he said something to the effect, "Well, what do you think about the UFOs?" "Oh, I think it's a lot of fun." "There's nothing funny about it." The guy was really kind of a crank phone call. But
do you know who this was?
No.
Yeah.
I tried everything I could to trick him into giving me some clue. Did I know him at the base? Did I know him from where? He just didn't stop, and he kept on not threatening me, warning dire consequences if I kept on talking about these UFOs. We still laugh about it. The rest of the people have everybody's been extremely gracious. They're very knowledgeable people. Once in a while you get someone who asks a question that kind of throws you off in the corner, but I've tried to answer everything as honestly as I can, and I've had no trouble with anybody. I try to keep my story straight. The only change on that, I try to keep my story simple so that it'll be straight and I don't have to cover anything up.